Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Faith in Our Hometown. Once again, I'm always delighted and honored and humbled that you spend some of your Sunday morning sometime with me, and I appreciate that. Sometimes when we're doing a show, we start talking about something that we always say, well, that would make another good show. And several weeks ago, back before I knew for sure that I was moving away from the Joplin area, we had done a show with Karolyn Schrage, who is the executive director of Life Choices, or Choices now, as they're known. And we had talked about the fact that we needed to do a little update on our human trafficking and where we are as a community and what we need to pay attention to as a community if we're going to make a difference in the biggest amount of slavery that still exists in human time, and more so than it ever existed before. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute to talk to Karolyn about that. So don't go away, settle in, get that cup of coffee, and we'll be right back after this Mercy Minute.
I have arthritis in my knees, and it was just excruciating. I wish I would have done something sooner. I found myself not able to go up and down stairs, which is bad because we realized we were going to have to sell our house. We decided just to take the worst one first, and we did. I was back to work in 6 weeks. 6 months later, I had surgery on the second one, and I'm back to work in 5 weeks. And I was a little scared, a little apprehensive, even though I knew everything that was going to happen. But I was just impressed. Life is short, and I waited. I think I waited too long.
Well, once again, thanks for being with us this morning. My guest, familiar to many of you, but maybe some of you might not have seen or know Karolyn Schrage. So Karolyn, it's good to have you back with us. Karolyn is the executive director for Choices, which is our crisis pregnancy and education and all. You guys do so many things. But one of the things that we were talking about the last time you were here that I wanted to highlight at least one more time, and again, this is before I knew I was really leaving. But I wanted to do another show, again, to raise the awareness of human trafficking and what we might be able to do to kind of like be more aware and to change some of that here in our own area. Because whether we like it or not, this stuff happens here.
It does. And thank you, friend, for all that you've done to bring highlight to this attention. I know that one of my treasured moments was the introduction with Sister Jean and all the work that she's done amongst the sisters in regards to the human trafficking issues that we sometimes think are only happening in movies like Taken and that sensationalized international focus, when in fact we have to understand that it is right here in our very own backyard. And I think that's why it's important for us to bring awareness, for us to talk about it, for us to understand that, in the USA, it's an estimated 300,000 teens, US teens, that are sexually exploited every year. And when we talk about children, we're looking at 46 kids a day that are in some form of that sexual exploitation. I was speaking with Detective Chip Root, who heads up our ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children. We're so lucky in Joplin to be able to have that based right here. But he was sharing that last year they had over 1,000 cases that they opened in regards to trafficking. And a lot of that somewhat probably related to the fact that so many kids were at home, were not in schools, or were not in situations where they just had so much access to the internet. And so we have to keep up with the awareness and realize that predatory grooming and what's happening on the internet is leading to modern day slavery.
And people will take advantage when they find an opening. And unfortunately, because of the things that happened in this last year, some of them had more openings. for that very reason, because kids were spending more time, unsupervised time, at that, on a computer. It's scary. I mean, it's just scary what can happen to our kids, and how vulnerable they are in that regard. So, yeah. So, sometimes people, say, well, you're going back to this topic really often, and I'm like, well, it's because, in my estimation, it's one of the hidden, evils of our society, because there's more slavery now at any point in time in history, in terms of numbers, than there ever has been. So more slavery exists now, if we talk about trafficking and exploitation in that regard, more that exists now than at any other point in time in history. And I don't think that's me being an alarmist. It's just the reality of the numbers of what we're dealing with. And those numbers that you used were staggering.
Well, I think, Albert Einstein said, those that have the privilege to know have the duty to act. Well, we are privileged people, and we do know that it exists. But if we don't put that horrific feeling that erupts within us, if we don't channel that, if we're not moved to action, then what happens? I've often sat across the table or sat in a casino floor or, been at a hotel where someone who has been presumably arrested for prostitution, and you listen to the story and you realize that the prostituted woman of today is often the child of yesterday that was that trafficking victim, and there was no one there to rescue you.
Nobody there to make the interruption and all that whole thing.
And so I think that's why it's important for us to know the signs, to recognize there are incredible organizations out there like Polaris that actually will list out what are some of those signs to look for. If you're stopping at a convenience store and you notice 3 women come in, or you notice a couple women, and you notice that there's someone who's speaking for them that doesn't allow them to make their own choices. They won't make eye contact with you. They're looking down. They're very subtle in their voice. I think sometimes we want to put a certain face on a traffic victim, but I've seen every color. I've seen every ethnicity. I've seen every age, from that's very young to women that are in their 50s that have been trafficked. It's some of the immigrants that have come into our communities. And we're talking all different races and ethnicities. We're talking not just female, we're also talking male. Sex sells. The human trafficking industry, they say projected $150 billion every year globally. That is just lust and sex, like it's there. And unfortunately, people want to profit off of that. And that takes a toll on human lives.
Well, people will profit off whatever they can profit off of. But many times it's other people's misery that makes them their money. And that's sad. That's sad. So, here in our own area, like you say, knowing some of the signs is one of the things in terms of a heightening awareness. What would you do in that situation? Because I was sitting there thinking as you were telling the story, well, what would I do now if I noticed that in the convenience? I don't spend a lot of time in convenience stores. I just don't. It's not one of those. I just don't. So, but what would I do if I noticed that?
Well, I think the first thing is you are not going to confront the person that may be trafficking them in the moment, and that's why we have a good police department. It's really important to make that phone call. If you are suspecting that there is something that's not right, trust your instinct. So make that call, tell them that you think something is not right, but be that person who's very aware. Notice, what is the color of the car? How many people are in the car? Like, what was the make? If you are good at numbers, memorize the license plate. Have that information that you can pass on. But I think it's also important that we're not just looking in a convenience store. It can be when we're at any of our department stores. It can be even in a church that someone has been exploited. We have to look in our schools. We have to look in every aspect where we know that there is a vulnerability of human beings. There is that potential for someone to be trafficking someone else. You sell a gun and you've sold it once, but you sell a person, you can sell that person over and over and over in a day to pad your wallet and to make that profit. So it's important to look for those signs.
Yeah. You mentioned Polaris as a place where you can get like lists of potential things to look for. What might some of those other things that we might notice?
Well, I think when we've done some education in the schools, if you have an individual that suddenly you're noticing comes in with a Coach purse, and economically, how on earth would this child afford something like that, or designer clothes, or things don't match up. Maybe they've suddenly been isolated, someone that has had a really good relationship with their family, and then suddenly they're backing away from their family, from their friends. There may be someone in their purview that is actually grooming them and is actually putting a wedge between their safety support, pulling that person away. And I think there are a lot of different ways that we can also see that trauma that may happen for branding tattoos that have the initials of their trafficker. There are also specific trafficking tattoos that are known to the law enforcement industry that they're aware of. When we begin as nurses like myself, or as those that are serving with youth, we begin to suddenly look at some of those trends. And I serve as the Victim Services Coordinator for RISE, which is our local collaborative networking organization that is trying to make a difference with the sexual exploitation. And we've got brochures, we've got cards, we've got all kinds of things that have those different flags, those red flags.
Yeah. In terms of some of those things, so somebody is like, kind of fascinated by this, so they could do RISE, they could Google RISE.
Facebook, go to our Facebook page, RISE Coalition. It gives a lot of information. Even some of our quarterly meetings that we have been recorded on there. Recently, Matt Smith, who works with ICAC, who is from the Jasper County Sheriff's Department, he's come and done some assemblies with us in the schools. Sergeant Andy Blair went with me to McCauley. We did an assembly there. We're highlighting what are those things we need to look at. So really, I would say start with the RISE Facebook page, and that'll give you some good information and let you know when the next meeting is and what are some of those things that we as a community can focus on.
Yeah, and again, I would just suggest, in terms of viewers out there. So if you've got a church group or a women's group or a men's group or, something there that, you just realize that this is something that people have not even, that it doesn't even cross their imagination. This is the kind of group that would come in and do information for you. And again, just to give you an idea of what it is that's going on. I mean, it is so prevalent that we just don't see it, and I think that we're never going to get anywhere if we don't get to the place where we have the ability to see some of what might be going on, because it can be so silent, in terms of that.
Well, as a member of the Attorney General for Missouri, the Human Trafficking Task Force, I think that's where, again, Joplin has had the opportunity to make its mark, and we've been invited to take RISE and to take our group of victim services providers and to go across our state. And when they're having those opportunities where they need services right there on site, we're able to take our medical mobile unit, we're able to take our trained nurses, we're able to provide those services right then and there. And that's huge to be able to serve in that moment.
Yeah. My guest this morning, Karolyn Schrage, who's the Executive Director for Choices, and we are talking a little bit about human trafficking. So we're going to be right back after a real quick break, so don't go away.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, thanks for being with us again for another Sunday morning. My guest this morning, Karolyn Schrage. We're talking about human trafficking. So, Karolyn, what if somebody just said, oh, those two are just, they're being overly, cautious, they're being overly sensitive, they may be seeing, things that exist behind every bush that we just don't think is there. What is law enforcement? And so what kind of what kind of numbers are we dealing with, like, for example, the Attorney General's office? Because they are not looking around. I mean, they're not seeing demons where they're not. They're going to have real things to deal with. But how many real demons are out there that we're dealing with in terms of law enforcement?
I wish we could put a number on those demons, but I know from personal experience, just the 3 deployments that they've had us on recently, and just in one specific night, the number of individuals that have been gleaned out of a truck stop sting or out of a hotel. We've been asked to come in and be the ones to provide those services right there in the moment. And sometimes even for as long, I feel like I'm new to this, and yet I realize that there are not a lot of people that have been in it for a long time. But I remember one of our first deployments at the end of last year with the Attorney General in this grander scope. We walked in, and the first person that they brought to us was a mother and her 3 children. So in that moment, we were providing services for a baby, for an infant, for a 3-year-old, for a 5-year-old, along with this mother whose spirit was crushed as suddenly she realized that she'd been caught and her children were going to be taken from her. And yet, as one FBI interviewer has mentioned with us, she said, just because a victim is compliant in their victimization, it doesn't make them any less a victim. And so I think we have to understand that this was the only way that this particular woman in this moment knew how to provide for her children. And there was someone behind the scenes that was exploiting. And so understanding that it's that force, that fraud, that coercion that often puts a woman in a situation where she may not be permitted to see her kids if she doesn't turn in her quota of so many tricks in one day. And no one wakes up some morning and says, oh, I want to be a prostitute. No little girl dreams of being run off with some individual that she thinks is going to be the love of her life, but suddenly she finds out that she's only one of 3 loves of his life, and that if she really is going to exist, she's going to have to do everything he demands in that moment. And so I think we do have to look beneath the surface. We have to understand the story. We have to see the little girl. We have to see the sister, the mother. We have to see that daughter that is behind that face, that is just trying to survive. And how do we, as individuals of humanity, how do we respond? Do we respond with turning away and disgust? Do we throw out those terms of whore and those things that would defame, rather than seeing them with the dignity and the kindness that God sees them with?
And again, sometimes we get so much in our own way because we pass judgment before we, can get anywhere. It's just like, well, I know the situation, it's just like, but I really don't think, I think the point you bring about saying nobody dreams someday that, I'm going to be out, turning tricks in order to make it or to survive. And I think we sometimes, those of us who are those good Christians will sometimes get so judgmental, about, there were other choices and they just didn't know what they were, they could have chosen something else. They could have done something else. Well, maybe, but most of the time they're still victims, and whatever we can do to get them out of that, I still think needs to be the most compassionate response, rather than it's just like, well, first you prove to me how you got in here, and I just don't think that that's the compassionate response. The compassionate response is that if you're you're in this and you're not, this is not you're choosing. What can we do to help intervene here? What can we do here to help give you a different opportunity? What can we do to help free the the chains? I'm a big I've been in St. Peter's for 15 years now, and just recently, by the time everybody sees this, I'll have been gone for a couple of weeks, okay? But my whole thing about that, Jesus saying, whatever you held loose will be loosed, whatever you held bound will be held bound. I don't think he was saying that because he wanted us to be the boss of everybody. I think he was saying it because he was saying there's all kinds of things that are holding people bound, and you know what you got let loose from. Now you figure out how to go let other people loose from whatever's holding them bound. And I see that as part of the compassion of being another human being who looks at somebody who winds up trapped in a situation like this, and how do we fix it? How do we get in there, and how do we do something different?
And I think that sort of embodies the name Rise. We want to be able to say to someone, you can rise above. You don't have to stay here. Let us help you to believe in yourself again. Let's work on that plan. So it's not just about showing up and telling them that where they're at is not right, but it's really about giving them the dignity of helping them develop a safety plan, giving them options and choices, and knowing that there are safe houses and there is transportation. I mean, we are filled in this community with people who want to do good deeds. Right. They just don't know what to do. And so,
most of the time those folks are invisible to most of us.
Yes, and we don't, probably most of your viewers have no idea that, I have a hairdresser that will cut and dye and style hair to give that fresh look. I've got a pilot that is given of his time to get someone completely out of this area, to get them back home to mom and dad, or to bring someone from a place of danger back to the safety of their home. We've got people that are safe that will help me get them transported to a safe house. We've got people that will do tattoo cover-ups that will help take the mark that someone else has put on their body and re-envision with a floral design that gives them a new breath and a new hope. And that's what it's all about, is that recalibrate, that refresh, and that hope that there is something yet to come.
Well, so again, I want to make sure we elevate RISE, where the folks can find all that information. Mm-hmm. Again, tell everybody what RISE stands for one more time.
RISE stands for the Regional Intervention of Sexual Exploitation. So it is a community grassroots effort where it just involves many of our faith partners, our medical facilities, law enforcement, just those people in the community that care about others and don't want to make Joplin an easy place, an easy target for those traffickers. So we want to say, not in my backyard. We're going to do whatever we can to know the signs, to be aware, and to speak out.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, that the whole business, about me passing on phone numbers to you, which is that's all that was. Phone number comes to me one week, and I'm like, I don't know why I have this person's name, but I know that this person's involved in doing this, and blah, 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 potential speaker down the road, whatever. And then all of a sudden it comes up. Well, that's how that's kind of the way that networking works. So I can just say, well, I have heard of this sister, up in the Kansas City area who's doing this stuff. And while none of us here are really that closely involved, but I know that there's somebody there who's doing it. So, yeah, give them a call and see whether or not what can happen. It's God's good to us in that way. Where you just every once in a while God just goes, pay attention. In this moment, and you never know how some of that stuff is going to work out. So I'm just grateful. When I stay out of God's way enough for some of those things to be able to happen.
Sometimes He kicks us out of our complacency and moves us along, gives us some course correction, and says, hey, I need you to pay attention. And that's, I've been at Life Choices for 17, 18 years, but it's only been in the last 5, 6 years that we've been, we are seeing these individuals in our clinic. Are we doing enough? Are we seeing something? Are we saying something? And that's where having law enforcement in our community that's been trained and have that proactive stance, they don't want you to sit back and not pay attention, but see something, say something, make that phone call. All they can do is investigate. If it's nothing, it's nothing. Right. But if something's there, you don't know whose daughter, whose sister, whose someone, loved one, you've made a difference in that day.
Well, and again, I'll never forget when I was over at Southeast, there was an accounting professor who would sometimes lure his students in this way. He would say, if you had a neighbor and you knew this was happening to him or her, what would you do? Well, I'd help. I'd give a little donation, or I'd make sure they had enough cash, or I'd take them food, or I'd do whatever. And then he'd say, so if you know that, why would you do that? Well, it's the right thing to do, it's right. It's because I know this person and blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, so what's the difference then when that person may be across town or even across the country and you don't happen to know their name, but they could still use some of that? And the students are going to go, okay. Because the deal is that it should still matter to us because they're human beings. It should still matter to us because somebody's taking advantage of somebody else.
Yeah.
And we just can't afford not to do that.
Yeah, I remember just a few Saturdays ago, I got a call, and it was from one of the FBI task force agents that are here in our community, and he said, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, well, it's Saturday morning. And he's like, can you meet me at the jail? And he had been notified by someone else that there had been a situation. I went down to the jail with the go bag, and within 5 hours, we had this woman on a plane out of our community and back to a place of safety. Through our roadways, I-44, 249, we have that crossroad here in Missouri that makes us and should make us understand that it is happening in our backyard.
Always a pleasure, Karolyn. My guest again, Karolyn Schrage. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute to wrap up.
Blessings and greetings of mercy to you. My name is Anna Nichols. I am a Sister of Mercy and currently the leader of Heritage and Spirituality at Mercy International Association. I love the fact that sisters throughout time have gone where they have been called to go, and they have often picked up ministries that they never intended to pick up. 25 years ago, there were 22,000 Sisters of Mercy globally. Today we're down to about 6,200 with Sister Rock and some of the others. But despite the fact there are 6,500 or 6,200 sisters left, there is an amazing number of women and men of mercy who are working alongside us, and that continues to expand and expand, and for me that is incredibly exciting. So as far as National Catholic Sisters Week, I really look at the legacy that they have passed on and the fact that so many women, men, young people are living mercy today. That really is for me what's significant.
Well, this is my second to last Faith in Our Hometown. And I got to tell you, I'm going to miss so many things about this community. But one of the things that I will miss, and I'm sure I'll probably find I know I'll find it in some form we're in Branson, where I'm headed. So come see me when you're on vacation. But there are people in our community who care. And that's part of what makes Joplin's heart so big, and all the surrounding communities as well. Because I know that there are people out there who care about other human beings, and we care about when people are trafficked. We care about when people are made slaves in modern society because of the situations of their lives, and we got to do whatever we can in order to intervene and notice and try to make a difference for other people. So again, I thank you very much for being some of those people who care. I thank you for watching the show. I thank God for people like Karolyn Schrage and the people at Rise and at Choices. Come back and join us again next Sunday for my last Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.